I feel similarly about Saboteur as a foreign correspondent, quite entertaining, impressively thrilling, distractingly straightforward, in a way that the later, more renowned North by Northwest simply isn't. I read out some information associated with this film via a free encyclopedia. Hitchcock was under contract to David O. Selznick, so he first pitched the idea for the film to him. Selznick gave the okay for a script to be written, signing John Houseman to keep an eye on its progress and direction. Val Lewton, Selznick's story editor, eventually rejected the script, which reviewer Leonard Maltin later called extremely offbeat. So Selznick forced Hitchcock to offer it to the studios, causing ill feelings between the producer and his director, since it not only showed a lack of beliefs in Hitchcock's abilities, but also because the terms of Hitchcock's contract would net Selznick a 300% profit on the sale. Have you handed in your assignment, Mr. Berg? Excuse me, I had to ruin the video by doing all of that. Universal signed on, but Hitchcock could not have the two actors he wanted for the leading roles. If you weren't careful, you would have thought I just jumped into a very bad Hitchcock impression, but it was actually a rather bad John Houseman impression, inspired by Jerry Seinfeld's impression on the show of the same name. Gary Cooper was uninterested in the project, and Barbara Stanwyck had other commitments. He settled on Robert Cummings, who had a new contract with Universal, while Priscilla Lane was borrowed from Warner Brothers for her scenes had to wait while she finished Arsenic on Old Lace, a production that was eventually shelved until its 1944 release. In November 1941, Universal announced that Hitchcock would make the film for the studio, and it would be produced by Frank Lloyd and Jack Skirball. Cummings and Lane were to star. Hitchcock later said he was lucky to have young players who are intelligent and sensitive to direction, and players who are unmistakably young American. It was easy to bring out the familiar qualities to make Bob seem the lovable boy at the next lathe or around the corner. In Priscilla too, I had the resolute and daring attributes typical of American girlhood. I wanted the boy and girl in Saboteur to suggest the thrilling importance of unimportant people, to forget they were movie stars, to remember only that they are free and in terrible danger. Filming later wrote, "It's clear Cummings didn't command the screen as well as a Gary Cooper or Joel McCrea, who Hitchcock wanted. Nonetheless, he and Lane bring a fresh-faced young enthusiasm to their performances." Universal did bring in Dorothy Parker to write a few scenes, mostly the patriotic speeches given by the hero. Although Parker had been brought in to punch up the dialogue, Hitchcock also called in Peter Vietrell to continue to work on the script. Peter Vietrell. Hitchcock described the film as a series of cameos like the 39 Steps. It was originally meant to finish with a climax at a movie theater which is showing Abbott and Costello's film Ride 'em Cowboy. According to the New York Times, the studio feels that the booking will materially enhance the prestige of the comedians. However, that film was not used in the final movie. So we just read out this tab here, use of irony and symbolism. Hitchcock made use of irony on numerous occasions in Saboteur. For example, early in the film, the authorities are seen as menacing, while the well-respected rancher and kind grandfather is an enemy agent. In contrast, only ordinary folks and the down on their luck perceive Kane's innocence and offer trust. A long-haul truck driver, a blind householder, and the circus freaks. In New York City, wealthy Mrs. Sutton is secretly funding an enemy group. Saboteur is an early example of the distrust of authority that is one of Hitchcock's hallmarks. The plot structure of the film, with the falsely accused man having to go undercover and track down the real crooks/spies whilst crisscrossing the USA, and the final fight high up on an iconic American monument, with the hero assisted here by his lady, clearly prefigured North by Northwest, filmed almost 20 years later. These parallels are openly discussed in Truffaut's famous book of interviews with him, Hitchcock Truffaut, in the pages dealing with the earlier film, and when Truffaut notes that North by Northwest was a kind of remake of the older film, Hitchcock confirms, yes. Driving along the New York waterfront, Kane's car passes by the capsized hulk of the liner SS Normandy, an ominous warning of what could happen if the conspirators succeed in their plans. The final battle symbolizing tyranny against democracy takes place on the torch of the Statue of Liberty, probably one of Hitchcock's most on-the-nose moments, and of course, sequences like this inspired his later gag, which he would tell in interviews that the next film he wanted to direct featured a man hiding in a different monument, this time Lincoln's nose, and of course he would be revealed when the Lincoln would sneeze. Eventually this film became North by Northwest, as we all know.